Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Prevention Technology Transfer Center Fellows webinar. Our three fellows are going to be talking about the projects that they've been working on this past year. And we're very happy to have you join us for this. First will be Shelene Head, whose mentor was Mark Standing Eagle. But before we start that, Dr. Shinstadt, would you like to say anything before we start?
I would love to. Thank you very much, Dr. Gray and Dr. Bays. We're very, very proud of our prevention fellows. They have been the ones walking up the path this year. This is the first year we have any prevention fellows with the opportunity to have a capstone project at the same time. And that means a lot to us that we know you have really managed to do it. What always happens is that there are ups and downs and there are challenges, and that's part of what professional life is all about. But still, we are very proud you all managed to complete this, and I want to welcome everybody on the line and all the mentors as well. And we're very proud. So I would love to give the word over to Dr. Bays, if you would like to say something too before Shelene Head starts.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
sorry.
Dr. Skinstead. We have two Dr. Bases on the line.
Yes, sorry.
We'll introduce Dr. Mark Standing Eagle in just a few moments. But yes, thank you so much, Dr. Skinstead, Dr. Gray. It's been an honor to work alongside both of you to see this prevention fellowship straight through. I joined the prevention team shortly after we were awarded the program at the University of Iowa, and it has been an honor to work alongside you all and our three fellows who came to us and showed us what they were willing to learn and willing to do and serve in this field as beginning professionals. So I'm Dr. Allison Bays, and I served alongside in what is formerly known as the National American Indian Alaskan Native Prevention Center. Although I am no longer part of that team, it was really important for me to continue working with our people in this field because they are committed to providing our Native communities, our Native relatives across Indian country, options and education and learning experiences to better themselves in the field of behavioral health. And so with that, I want to say Nalitsam, because it's been an honor to work with all three of you in this field. This is really important to know that this program was supported by a grant from SAMHSA. They allowed us extra time to continue to finish up the program with our fellows. And the content of this event is the creation of all three of our fellows, as well as their mentors. And the opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA, HHS, or the Native Center for Behavioral Health. As we look at the next slide, we'll see our land acknowledgement for the Native Center for Behavioral Health. And it's really important for our center to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the Indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken over and inhabited. The University of Iowa sits on the area of Native land with the Meskwaki settlement. So past and present, we want to honor the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. And we know this is true for all of us who are online today because we are called to commit to forever learn how to be better stewards of these lands through action, advocacy, support, and education. We all acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of Native American territories, and we respect the many diverse Native people connected to this land on which we gather from time immemorial. While the injustices are still being committed against Indigenous people, our people on Turtle Island, today we say thank you to those that stand with us and acknowledge that land reparations must be made to allow for healing with our people and to Mother Earth herself. And this document, this land acknowledgement, was created by three of my former colleagues, Ella Driscoll, Keely Driscoll, and Shaw Bear, all from the Meskwaki settlement. What's really important to know is that your feedback helps us understand what you learned, what you're taking away from today's session. And so as we look at the next slide, you'll see a hyperlink that will take you to a survey. It cannot be traced back to you. It is anonymous, but it's important for us to understand what you're learning from our sessions and how we can improve upon for the future. So it's really important that you help us with that after today's event. Our host, Parker Laney, thank you for being on the line with us today. He will post it in the chat box towards the end of our session, so be mindful of that. And if you're looking for resources to continue the work or enhance the work that you're doing across Indian country, you're always welcome to email our team there at the Native Center for Behavioral Health. But at this time, I want to introduce our three speakers that you see here on the screen before you. As mentioned, we have Shelene Head, who is from the Red Lake Nation. We have Marie Schuyler-Dreaver, who is Anishinaabe, and we have Willie-Ed Tapedo, who's from the Kiowa Nation. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves because they do it best when they get ready to do their presentations. But briefly, Dr. Gray, if you'd like to say anything as the mentor to Will, and Dr. Bays as the mentor to Shelene, right before your mentee gives her presentation would be appropriate. So we turn the floor over to Shelene Head and her mentor.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Buju Anishinaabe, Wabanangukwe Indigo, Shelene Indigenous Cause, Magizine and Dudam, Obashing and Dunjaba, Miskwagamiwi, Zaga Egan, and Da. And there I said, hello, everyone. My Indian name is Morningstar Woman. My English name is Shelene. I am from the Eagle Clan. Panema is where I'm from, and the Red Lake Nation is my home. I'm not sure if Dr. Standing Eagle Bays would like to say anything before I start my presentation.
Yes, briefly, just want to say Niawin for everyone being here, but Seego Tilmanam to everyone, especially to you, Shelene. I do want to express how excited and proud I am of you, knowing you for the past 3 years and understanding your focus and passion towards our people and helping and making a difference has been a real joy for me to see you embrace in making a difference for our people. So I'm extremely excited and proud and can't wait to hear you present. You're going to do an amazing job. Niawan Nalatsam.
Thank you, Dr. Bays. So today I'm going to be presenting for you guys on decolonizing and indigenizing alcohol prevention among American Indian Alaska Native youth, and it will be with the white bison and the sweetgrass method. So,
And Shelena, put your presentation in exactly. Thank you. That's all I wanted you to do.
okay. Just a little background. So in general, there are historical concerns with alcohol use in the population. When we think of like fatalities due to cirrhosis or maternal drinking being linked to fetal alcohol syndrome, traffic accidents, overdoses, and then also psychological issues that are exacerbated. And then we also think about the source of contemporary alcohol-related problems is often linked to the first contact with Europeans for Indigenous peoples. And then I also want to make the point of there's great diversity that exists across tribes. And that includes like reservation and urban context, but this concept also extends to the rates and the patterns of alcohol use for Indigenous peoples. And recent research has shown lower or comparable rates of alcohol use compared to whites and other ethnic groups. Whitesell also noted that American Indians are at an overall increased risk for heavy episodic alcohol use. So like we think of binge drinking. My project's focus is on the youth, the American Indian youth, because recent data show the highest rate of reported alcohol use for this subgroup. And Whitesell notes that initiation may also occur earlier for them. So both of these concerns reveal a demand for targeted prevention efforts. Next slide, please. Okay, and the data that I just mentioned, it's from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, and it's very, very recent. You can see it says 2023, but I think it's actually from 2021, but it's the most recent data. And this is the percentage of high school students who drank alcohol during the past 30 days. And it's in the green right there. You can see American Indian, Alaska Native. They're significantly higher than any other group in that category. Next slide. So my project aims to examine two culturally specific methods that provide alcohol prevention support to the youth, and that is the white bison and the sweetgrass method. And it will also explore integrating these methods so that we can use them as a comprehensive tool for prevention with this Indigenous subgroup. And these are evidence-based or practice-based methods that show beneficial results among them. Next slide. Okay, alcohol use and abuse in American Indian youth. Many studies have shown significant disparities for the youth compared to whites and other populations. And I cited Guo, Stanley, Swayman, Stanley. However, recent studies have also found evidence to the contrary. Youth, they appear to be at an increased risk for alcohol-related consequences compared to other populations. Consequences like increased rate of use into adulthood and increased risk for developing a substance use disorder. I mentioned that we're not homogenous before, and this also extends to this group. So professionals, I think, should shift their thinking to health disparities and adverse outcomes because disparities do not appear universal. And this distinction is important because of implications for the development of prevention efforts and processes. Next slide, please. I'm also going to talk about the ineffectiveness of westernized alcohol prevention programs. So Weaver, she maintains that both perspectives are useful. Westernized and like traditional cultural methods, they can be combined in complementary ways, but the differences should be carefully considered because of their implications for cultural humility and also for the efficacy of prevention work. Because it should be noted that existing treatments do not include the key aspects of Indigenous identity and culture, which is essential to incorporate because those risk and protective factors like familial and community support or that strong cultural identity, they can improve the effectiveness of prevention efforts. So now I'm going to introduce the first method, the white bison, which is closely associated with sobriety. This is a sustainable grassroots movement that provides culturally based healing to the next 7 generations of Indigenous peoples. And sobriety, recovery, and wellness are the goals. So it's not simply just abstaining from drugs and alcohol, it's a commitment to a life of healing every day. They have many resource products like the medicine wheel and 12-step workbooks. They have video and audio tapes on prevention. They have trainings you can attend, also learning and talking circles. And it also included the white bison hyperlink. The title should be Decolonization and Indigenization. I'm not sure where it went, but decolonization is the undoing or the unsettling of colonial power and structures and the ways of learning and teaching. And then we have indigenization, which is the restoring of indigenous practices and languages and connections to ways of being. And this, for example, this is like giving voice to what still reinforces that colonial power. Like we think of MMIW, missing murdered Indigenous women, the child welfare, ICWA, prison system, residential schools. Indigenization is also redoing or reaffirming education to include Indigenous ways of knowing, thinking, feeling, and being. And Walters, they maintain that both are necessary because decolonization dismantles internalized colonization, and indigenization builds our knowledge base, our worldviews, and our practices. Oh, there's the title. Okay, now I'm going to introduce the second method, the sweetgrass method. First, just very briefly, sweetgrass for American Indians and First Nations people, they have held them sacred for a long time. It's used to purify oneself in the hopes of grounding the person in healing mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's used in prayer, ceremonies, dancing to honor individuals. And it's often an important step in the daily happenings for purification, protection, and strength. So the sweetgrass method is a community-based participatory approach for practitioners who are working with Indigenous clients or students to analyze the process, to recognize the range of needs in Indigenous clients' capabilities, and then to help Indigenous practitioners develop that culturally responsive teaching method for the clients that they serve. So there are three main areas for the sweetgrass method. It's a culturally responsive framework. When we think of sweetgrass, it's traditionally braided. So the first strand is introspection, which is a commitment to self-reflection. So we think of like cultural humility, a lifelong commitment to self-evaluation, and a self-critique on SUD support of Indigenous clients. The second strand is communication or collaboration, and it's this commitment to building relationships and partnerships with American Indian people and other groups to address the substance use and alcohol use concerns. And then the third and final strand is continuity, which is a continuum of culturally responsive supports or strategies, and also this continuous responsibility for substance use treatment and prevention, and also intervention. So now when we integrate these two together, I think it's important to note first that the sweetgrass method can be tailored to nearly any method, and it's very generalizable. So it can be adapted to fit any respective values, really. So the first strand is introspection again, and I think it's education on the most culturally responsive ways to work with the youth. So for example, the White Bison has workbooks for adolescent girls and boys. And then we also have Sons and Daughters of Tradition workbooks, study guides on the Red Road to Sobriety. The second strand is communication, and this is active involvement with members of the community. So I think of like receiving help with the trainings for Sobriety, providing study groups, receiving feedback from community members, and also even just sharing traditional meals. And the last strand is continuity. So this is providing guidance, modifying the services when needed, and reminding individuals that they're not alone in their healing process. So we're gonna honor the youth along with their stories and their experiences. In conclusion, it was shown that targeted prevention efforts are necessary for American Indian Alaska Native youth. And also that it is best to incorporate culturally specific risk and protective factors into prevention models because it can improve upon their effectiveness. I introduced the white bison and the sweetgrass method because they can provide alcohol prevention support to the youth, especially when they're integrated like that. And they're both shown to be adaptable, focused on healing, and most importantly, the youth who participate in these programs can leave feeling safe and in tune with their culture. These are my references. Miigwech, everyone.
Thank you, Shelene. A lot of great information and the important way that you bring two culturally responsive approaches for us to learn about and see how they are being implemented effectively across Indian country is really important. We know that there are some great quality products out there and methodologies, but these are two that I know you highlighted and you researched well. So I want to say thank you, Nalitsam, to you and Dr. Bays. Is there anybody who has a question or two for Shelene that you're willing to post in the chat at this time? And if you don't think of anything right now, it's okay. We'll leave some time open at the end also.
Shelene, I have a quick question.
Okay.
How much do you feel that wellness, as opposed to the deficit model of the substance use, is a more important approach in working with youth?
I think it's really important. Deficit for me is really, it doesn't emphasize hopefulness for me. So like I like to look at people and especially youth in a holistic manner. So like from all sides and angles, I don't like to look at them in a deficit. So thank you for that question.
Okay. We also have one in the chat box. Are there any good harm reduction models that you like and that are culturally relevant? Thanks. I think abstinence is great, but not realistic for many people. This is from Steve Hedrick.
Yeah. Harm reduction models. Let's see. I guess I don't know any that are culturally relevant, but it would be really interesting to try and make that happen, make that possible. I like, I'm kind of blanking on the models, but yeah, like I said, it would be really, really cool to have one modified in that way.
Yeah, I know from some work that I did when I worked with health department, the focus on reducing the amount that they drank, not saying don't drink, but saying if you continue to drink at this amount, here are some of the consequences you can expect. So it might be good to start thinking about cutting it back or monitoring your drinking at this point. That's just, one that I'm aware of. It's not cultural, but it's living in their world. And Shelene, thank you so much for your presentation and pointing out that most substance use models need to be more personalized in a good way.
Thank you.
And lots of good jobs and thank yous and miigwech.
Thank you.
So you've heard about some very culturally relevant methods that Shelene researched, studied, and decided to present on for today as a part of her fellowship. And we want to invite Will and his mentor, Dr. Jackie Gray, to go next. So Will, you have the floor.
Hello, my name is Will Tapedo. I am a Kiowa Apache from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I currently reside on the Wichita, Comanche, and Apache Reservation. And today I will be talking about the mental health and alcohol statistics for Caddo County with the focus on Native American population. And Dr. Gray, would you like to say something?
just that Will has really worked through a lot of adversity through this year. And we're really proud of what he's done and how he is completing this fellowship in spite of all of that. So I'll turn it over to you, Will.
All right, thank you. Let me. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Is everybody able to hear me?
And just tell Parker when you want to advance the slides.
Okay. All right. Hello. And all right. So this is going to be mental health, alcohol, and substance statistics for Caddo County in Oklahoma. My name is Willie-Ed Tapedo, and I am a Kiowa and Apache descendant. All right. All right. So first, I'll just mention the 5 topics. First, we'll go over mental health. Second will be the alcohol disorder. Third will be the substance use disorders. Fourth will be the Caddo County overdose numbers. And finally, fifth, we'll look at how we're going to move forward. The thing that I want to point out here is in the top left, in Caddo County, Native Americans make up the second largest population with 5,480 people. That is a different kind of population from almost anywhere else in the USA. We have 6 or 5 different tribes in our area that all reside within the same county. Next slide, please. All right. So 1 out of every 4 citizens of Caddo County are living with a mental health disorder. That does not just include the Native population, that is everybody. When it comes to getting the mental health disorder, this number is also sort of skewed because a lot of people that are suffering will never be diagnosed because they're never going to go in and actually try to receive the help. Caddo County individuals who are in need of treatment are around 4,500, but only about 500 have reached out for the support. This roughly leaves 4,000 citizens suffering in silence. That's the whole part that I want to figure out and try to touch on today is the fact that there's a lot of things going on nowadays, especially since the pandemic. And I'm sure that those numbers are probably higher now than they were then. And so the thing is that I'm just trying to figure out how I can get people to reach out and stop suffering in silence, because there's so much more power in reaching out than there is in just sitting there and suffering by yourself. And then just to finish off the part about the mental health, the state of Oklahoma ranks in the top 5 nationally for the highest rate of mental health disorders. So this is just not in Caddo County. This is actually a statewide deal, and it's something that I really want to look into because I'm starting to figure out that there's a lot of things that are happening and going on around here that we really need to look into and try to get in front of before it gets way worse. Next slide, please. All right, so this one comes straight from the town that I live in. In the town of Anadarko in Caddo County, the average rate of public intoxication incarceration is 2 or more per day. That is just an average. And over the past year, it's probably maybe raised up to at least 3 or more per day. We have pretty much nothing around here that is going to help to try to get people into treatment. When I actually attended treatment, I had to go to Texas. I had to go 4.5 hours away just to get into a treatment, and thank the Lord that I did because it got me help. But my thing is that around here in this area, there's nothing that we have. There's nothing that is going to get anybody help, and I think that's one of the top reasons why it's hard to get anybody to reach out for help, because they're looking around. They're going to say, well, where is it? So out of the 770 total arrests in Caddo County, 280 have been alcohol related in 2023. This includes juveniles. So with that, you know, what it's telling me is that we're not getting something, because even the younger generation is kind of following in the footsteps of the older generation. And that is something that, you know, I have lived with, I've lived through it, and it's something that I want to try to get in front of also, because the whole part that I've come to realize about all this stuff is that the alcohol and substances are never the problem. The actual problem is the human being themselves. It's the shame, it's the guilt, it's everything that they put up with that they mask with the alcohol or substances. The last stat that I want to point out is around 23% of individuals in Caddo County that have been screened reported having consumed alcohol daily in the past month. This also includes juveniles. What strikes me about this stat is that that's 1 out of every 5 people that I run into every day in this county. Adults or, you know, younger teenagers or whatever. That's a very alarming stat to me because, you know, school's in, there's bus drivers out here, you know, all this stuff that I really never thought about, you know, is happening. And I can no longer just sit back and let it happen. I have to say that I tried. Even if I don't change anything, I cannot sit back anymore and just let this happen. Next slide, please. Okay, now to switch over to the other side of the coin, which is the substance use disorder. In the past 3 months, Caddo County has had 40 individuals sent to treatment for a substance use disorder. Now, substances can be alcohol also, but in this context, we're only talking about substances that include drugs, illicit drugs, opioids, all that. The fact that even 40 of them went is a really high jump from the previous 3 months. In the previous 3 months, we sent 3. I would like to say that me and a couple of my that worked with the Wichita tribe had a little hand in this because we went out and put ourselves out there in the community, and we went out and we handed out flyers, told them, hey, we can help you out. We held events to you know, come by and we handed out pamphlets, you know, I mean, lock boxes, anything, Narcan, anything that we could to try to get everybody to understand that you don't have to keep living this kind of life. You know, you can fix it. And so, with that being said, fentanyl has been a part of 3/4 of our overdose deaths in Caddo County since 2021. I mean, honestly, this isn't a big surprise. We've seen this coming years ago, and the worst part about it is that it's not getting any better now. The media and everything is choosing to take their focus off of it. You know, the focus is on wars and everything now, which, hey, I mean, I understand. But at the same time, the war on fentanyl and the war on all these, you know, on ourselves still hasn't stopped. That's still raging. And the worst part about it is now it's kind of getting pushed to the side again. And I don't want to let that happen, especially where I'm from. And so, you know, knowing that the fentanyl is 3/4 of it is just a lot to have to deal with because there's no way of finding the fentanyl. It's odorless. You can't see it. They can put it into anything from candy to drugs. So, you know, this is a huge thing that all that I figured that I could do was do Narcan training and hand out the fentanyl strips so that people can test their own medication and whatever else. The last one is methamphetamine is a drug of choice for the individual seeking treatment in Caddo County in 2023. I put this last one in there because methamphetamine does not most of the time lead to an overdose. So the reason why I put this in there is because it's another substance that is really taking over the area where I live at. And what I want to point out is that fentanyl and methamphetamine are on 2 sides of the substance spectrum. If you mix them together, most of the time, the human being's heart will either blow up or it's going to slow down or stop because you're playing a roller coaster game with your body. And I don't know if a lot of younger people understand that, and they mix these things together, and it's just a cocktail that's not going to end up good for them. Can you, next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, so this one, just 3 other stats, and I'll just go off of them. Caddo County has ranked 2nd in the state of Oklahoma over the past several years in drug overdose death rates. Now, that also comes down to the fact that if you drive an hour from here, you're in Oklahoma City, and I-40 and Route 66 run through Oklahoma City. So that pretty much runs through the entire rest of the country. So we're not but an hour away from getting any kind of, you know, substance that anybody else can get in this entire country because it's getting moved through our state daily. And, you know, so that's the reason why it is hard for us to even get anything done because there's no way to stop the influx of it coming through our state because it comes through and it's gone. So that's just a hard part of dealing with what we have to deal with. And in Caddo County, American Indians have had the highest rate of death overall in the same time period. This includes suicides, this includes overdose deaths, this includes violent and non-violent deaths. And that right there is something that really, really caught my eye, because even though we are not even half of the population, we are a small part of it, but we're a large part, but it's just a small area. But the fact that we can still account for the highest overall number, that's really alarming to me. And I am not sure how I'm going to help to stem that tide or turn it around, but I'm going to do whatever I can and whatever I have to do. And the third one, and this one really is something that I know is, that has occurred a lot, especially here, because nearly half of all the deaths have occurred at a home or an apartment. And like I was saying earlier, like around here, there isn't too much to do. So a lot of times the kids and teenagers and stuff are going to be at home. There's not a YMCA around here. There's not gyms around here. There's not, none of that stuff. Like, we really don't have anything besides going out and finding a basketball court, or playing video games or something with your friends, and even that will keep you at home. And so with that happening, just imagine that there's a young kid in a home that has to discover their mom or dad or uncle or aunt dead. That's just going to end up, their parents or their aunt and uncle was going through things, and now they just gave them something that they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives. So, it's something that I have to figure out, what can be done? How can I possibly try to even stop this? Because there's just more people being traumatized daily, and there's more things happening daily. And there's just a lot of things that I'm really trying to get done. And it's taking time, like, this is the first time that I've realized that a year is not very, very long. And now I'm starting to understand that what I'm trying to do is going to take years, and I'm going to have to do a lot of work. I'm going to have to talk to a lot of people and get a lot of things done, but I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to stand in that gap for people. And that's pretty much, why I'm so glad that y'all gave me the opportunity to even be a fellow and do this work. So thank you. Can move to the next slide, please. All right. Now, this is the outlook on the future. So this is what gives me hope. We have 5 different tribes in Caddo County that offer some type of resources for locating and attending an alcohol/substance use disorder facility in 2023. I'll get more into that in just a second. The Wichita and affiliated tribes of Oklahoma are currently working on a grant to start helping pregnant mothers that are dealing with an SUD. Now, this right here means a lot to me, because I was a kid that dealt with this same thing in the womb. I was dealing with substances. So knowing that I came out of that, got to where I'm at now, I would love to be able to say that I helped young mothers to also get to where me and my mom are now. We dealt with a lot of things, but we are on great terms today, and I would love to see other moms and sons and daughters be able to also live that. And also, there, just because the pregnant woman is taking opioids, you can still help them and not affect the fetus. And now the third thing, this is a program that I used to work for at the Wichita and affiliated tribes. The BEAR program, the BEAR stands for Becoming Every Addict's Reason, has helped at least 38 incarcerated individuals with an alcohol/substance charge get out of lockup and into a treatment facility so far in 2023. Next slide, please. All right, now these are the local tribes that are helping. These are tribes that are located in Caddo County. The Apache, Kiowa, Delaware, Caddo, and Wichita tribes all have their administration tribal buildings in Caddo County. Each tribe is using different plans of action in combating the mental health and substance abuse crisis that we are facing in our area. This is where it kind of gets tough for me, because out of those 5 tribes, the Wichita tribe is currently the only one that offers a TOR program, a tribal opioid response program of any sort. The others, they offer, rides for the elders to hospital appointments, different things like that. But as far as really being able to help somebody with an addiction get in when they need the help, not put them on a wait list for 3 to 6 months. The Wichita Tribe are the only ones that are actually doing that at this point. And that is really something that I want to look into, because I'm a part of the Apache tribe, and I would really love to be able to write a grant with them and get a tour program going with them, because if they could get a tour grant going, I could definitely help in a lot of ways. And so these are the next steps I'm looking to take. Also, there's other things that I'm working on. I have an app that I'm working on called No SIS, which is No Suffering in Silence. That started out as just an app, as me trying to just put something out there, but it turned in and evolved into something very, very different. Not only will I be doing a app, but I'm also working on a podcast called Will's World. So I will also be doing a podcast that will also fit into that app, so that when you're in the app, you can go and look up any of the podcasts from top to bottom. It'll be a bi-weekly podcast, about 15 minutes for each one. And what I'm going to focus on is the different brain chemicals. I want to take complicated things and break them down to simple terms for people that are going through crisis, for people that are going through addiction. I want them to understand that if your acetylcholine is off, that's going to make your mood get off. That's going to mess with your sleep. There's going to be so many things that if I could get them to understand these on a different level, maybe they would turn and help somebody else to figure that out. And that's, at this point, that is where I'm at. And I'm just hoping that I'm going to be able to catch a break here or there and be able to help quite a few more people. Thanks for listening. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for everything. This past year has been awesome. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Will. And you've really helped us to focus our attention on how big the problem is there just in one county in Oklahoma. So we've gotten a number of questions. So if you're ready.
Yeah.
The first one is from Sheila Hurd. Is the AA program active in Caddo County?
Right now, I am the only one that is actively trying to start one. Whenever I have to attend an AA meeting, I either have to Zoom one or I have to drive out of my county at least an hour to find one. And, that is not a good thing. I actually have one of my old cross-country coaches is a reverend here, and he has a church now that he leads. And he told me, he said, look, he said, if you really want to run this, he's like, there's an open room for you. So now it's about, because when it comes to AA, you can't go out and be like, hey, come to my meeting. You can't go up, you can't put up flyers, you can't do any of that. It has to be purely from that person. They have to know that there's a meeting, but that's it. You cannot, you can't bring them in. They have to walk in on their own 2 feet.
Okay, thank you. The next one's from Rachel Allen. Will, do you feel the recent prevention efforts, such as the tribal opioid response grant activities, the Communities in Schools program for Anadarko, and similar grants that offer things such as cultural classes, have been making a positive impact? Or do you have suggestions for improvement of those grant activities?
Well, I could actually talk about a few of those things. Whenever I worked for the Wichita Tribe, we did Project Venture, where we went into the middle school here. And, that is something that it really did not work out. We had a few kids that attended, but overall, we couldn't seem to get them to understand what we were trying to do. And, that's a bigger part of what's going on over the entire community, is that there's so many things here that we can do that the grants have actually helped. Like I said, the Wichita Tribe is the only tribe around here that actually has a tour program. And even though we only got a few people in, that's more people than not helping, And so, but the part for me that is hard is that the grants are all there. I mean, Joe Biden just released, I don't know how much more money for the fentanyl crisis. There's so much money out there from these grants. There's so much that we could get. And that's something that I truly want to look into, even if it's a SOAR program, even a state-run opioid. It does not matter to me. I just want to be able to give somebody a place to go, because, just the amount of suffering that's happening around here is a lot to deal with, because, there's no jobs, like the top jobs around here are truck driving and, doing like manual labor, and for a younger generation coming up, that's a lot because they just want to play video games and stuff like that. And so what are they going to do when they get older and everything they've done, none of it translates to money around here? I mean, just this year in August, we had 66 kids transfer from our high school here to a Indian school called Riverside on the outside of our town. So, I mean, there are just a lot of things that are happening right now that I'm trying to get a hold on because I don't understand it. I just want to be able to figure out like why, what's at the bottom of this problem.
Thank you. The next question is from Steve Hedrick. Don't they have fentanyl strips? I don't think that is the only Band-Aid solution, or I think that is only a Band-Aid solution.
Yes, definitely. Fentanyl strips. Now there are things, that like you were talking about harm reduction, and especially like the medicine wheel, all those things, those all work too. But the whole part is like you said, like a fentanyl strip is, you could call it a Band-Aid, but the whole part is that's what I want the people in my community to understand is that everything that they're doing is just a Band-Aid. The substance use, the alcohol use, everything, that's all Band-Aids. I need them to take the Band-Aid off and deal with the real wound that's at the bottom. When I can get my community to start understanding that is the true problem, it has nothing to do with the alcohol. Like whenever I attend a meeting, I walk up and I say, my name is Will and I'm an alcoholic addict. But my problem is me, because I found out that at the end of the day, it was never the alcohol, it was me. When I dealt with my shame, when I dealt with my guilt, when I dealt with my fear, when I dealt with everything, the substances just kind of went away. And that's what I want everybody to understand where I'm from is that, there is a light at the end of that tunnel. You don't have to keep fighting, like put the shovel down. You don't have to keep digging yourself into that hole more and more. Like I'm reaching down into them holes. Like, come on, like I got my hand here. Like, put the shovel down and come on with me.
Okay, thank you. Peyton Counts wants to know what's the legal status of fentanyl strips in Oklahoma? Has there been criminalization of this harm reduction tool?
Right now, no. When I was working at the tribe down here, we had access to fentanyl strips, lock bags, lock boxes, and now, you can go to okimready.org and actually put in your address and a zip code, and they'll send you a free can of Narcan within the week. So, I mean, at this point, there are so many different ways to get help, but the fentanyl strips, the whole part about them is even sometimes those can be faulty. But the thing with the is it isn't about getting them to them, it's about will they actually use them. Because when it's when you're actually sitting there and you're actually about to do whatever it is that you're going to do, are you really going to take that time to check it? Now most people aren't, so that's my whole deal. My thing is to get it into the hands of the people that will actually use it.
Okay. Next, Dr. Standing Eagle Baez is asking, are there any culturally responsive substance use disorder prevention programs for youth and the community with the Wichita tribe?
No. There is no kind of stuff around here for that. As far as youth goes, just like Shelene was saying, I mean, I've actually been certified as a Warrior Down coach. I've been through the White Bison training. I'm certified to run the classes. The whole part is that there's nowhere for it to run around here. I really tried it for about 6 months. You come in, you smudge everybody, the colors, all that stuff. I mean, I did that, and I had, I think, 2 people in 6 months come in. And it's just, I mean, I went out, I mean, the tribe put it out on the website, everything. And that's the kind of thing that I'm dealing with is everybody knows about it. It's right there, but it's just getting them to understand that, hey, these services are here, they're free, they help. You feel like I don't understand if it's a stigma, if it's just the fact that they just don't want to come in, if they don't trust us. I don't know what it is, but that's right now what I'm currently trying to.
Okay, and then Steve Hedrick again, what's the possibility of consolidating a unified plan and approach to address the problem?
Well, that would be a awesome thing if I could get all these tribes to band together and really start something. You know, that would be that's my main goal. But that would be where the podcast and the app is going to come in. I can shop that to each and every tribe and be like, okay, if you would like to be a part of this, come on, because you know, it gives me a backpack to carry with me anywhere I go. I have tools with me to where I can say, hey, check it out. You know, not only are we doing this, but this is also happening too. You know, and if you like to be a part of this, you know, please, you know, come on. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just helping.
All right, and then we have a couple of comments. Sandy Scott says, nice. I would love to learn more about the podcast. I'm with Morningstar Counseling, and we do a lot of Native youth podcasts called Indigenous Voice. Overall, great
Nice.
presentation, and I can see your passion. Keep working hard. And then following that, from Kayla Burns, I'm from the Blackfeet Reservation, working for the public schools as a prevention specialist. Is your podcast available for my students to listen?
Not right now, because they are going to be in a package. Because whenever you get on the app, I want you to be able to also reach my podcast. But what I'm trying to do also is get other natives to have their podcast on there also. You know, this is never just about me anymore. It's what can I do to help push other people forward.
Okay, Felicina Begay says, I'm a grant writer. If you need someone to review your applications, please feel free to reach out.
Yes, thank you. Wow. Yeah, God is good, man.
And Mary Van Winkle, thank you for the 2 great presentations, and they have to leave. Okay. Chief Michelle Mitchum, are there any Indigenous-based AA programs available for first responders? And if not, would you be willing to help us develop ours?
No, and yes, definitely. I would love to be able to develop any sort of curriculum moving forward, because any curriculum moving forward that I want to deal with is I really want to start going below the surface. I really want people to start understanding that there is no help in just pulling that Band-Aid off. There is no help in just doing that. You got to heal that wound. And that's what I really want to start getting at.
Okay. Rachel Allen says the different grant programs need to see which of their goals, objectives, and target populations overlap and have a combined effort to make a positive impact.
Yes.
Caleb Burns says, good job, Will. Your recovery and continued effort to help the problem is admirable. I lost my dad to alcohol addiction when I was a young girl. We have 2 zero resources, and the most people don't know how to implement healthy coping skills to address the root of the problem.
Yep. And that's what I wanted to help. What you just said right there is that's what I want to do.
Brian says, Will, have y'all set up a virtual Wellbriety local group yet?
No, because I'm the only one. That's my whole deal. Is I'm trying to bring others on with me, and it's so hard because I can't get anybody to just follow through. You know what I mean? Like, that's the worst part. Is it's kind of like I'm like, hey, you know, come on and help me, but when I walk into somewhere, I'm just by myself. So, you know, I'm trying to figure out how I can get some people to come in with me.
Okay. Charity Rogers asks, what's the leadership of your tribe doing to assist you?
Right now, I have been in contact with the chairman of my tribe. His name is Darrell Cooper. And you know, he wants to do all this stuff because he's like he's younger. So, you know, he would love to do all this stuff. At this point, it's just getting him to be able to me for an hour, you know, getting him, because the last I heard, he was flying to DC for a tribal conference, you know. So, I mean, it's hard to get him, but he will be the first one that I will start with, because that's the first tribe, you know. I mean, that's what I want to help, you know, first. But I would love for that to be a springboard, and pretty much I want that to be the glowing example of what every other tribe can do if they would just, you know, set the time down and do it.
And there was a request for your contact information, and Dr. Shinstad has put her contact email address in there, and she can get any of them in contact with you. And I think
Awesome.
we'll
Yeah,
wrap
because I
this
mean, guys.
up now, because we still have
Oh,
one more presentation.
oh, yeah. Well, hey, I
But
mean,
you had
this
a lot
doesn't
of
stop for me,
interest, and you
guys.
did a
So
great job,
yeah.
Will. I've really
So
appreciated
please,
working
please.
with you.
No, hey, oh yeah, this does not stop, guys. Yeah, we're gonna keep this going. So thank y'all for the opportunity. You know what I mean? Thank y'all for even. I mean, I'm just a person from a reservation in Oklahoma, and I got this chance to do this. This is amazing. So thank y'all for real for everything. Thank you, Dr. Baez, Dr. Gray, Dr. Skinstead, all y'all. Thank y'all for this, because this has been amazing.
Thank you, Will. Great
Thank
job.
y'all.
Thank you, Will. It is important work that our fellows have been doing in the field the last year, whether it's been attending trainings and workshops and reading and researching on their own, and still serving across Indian country. And we have one more to share her experience from this year and the work that she's been doing as an early professional in this field of prevention science. And I am really honored to introduce her. I was her mentor for the year, and so we've had a lot of good conversations about the work that she's been focused on, because it is one of the 3 required curricula for those of us who want to become certified prevention specialists. SAMHSA encourages us to go through prevention core competencies, the SAPST program training, which is formerly known as the Substance Abuse Prevention Skills Training, as well as an ethics training. And once you've gone through those 3, it's really important for you to know that you become eligible to sit for your exam. And so Marie decided to tackle one of those and see how we can indigenize and make it meaningful to our people, just like Will and Shelene shared. So with that, I want to invite our host, Parker, to get Marie's title slide up on our screen and give Marie the floor.
Thank you, Dutch Base. Sagole Sagwe, Kajija Lolux Niongets, Atnawa, Niwagitalo, Oniota Aga, Niwagi Hanjo. I am Marie Schuyler-Dreaver. I am one of the fellows here with you all today. I thank you all for participating and joining with us. And I just want to make some disclosures that I'm working alongside Dr. Bays today, and we are under a severe snowstorm that's been snowing since about 4 this morning. And I'm working from my work laptop, which, as you can see on my background, I am a federal contractor. I work for the SAMHSA Tribal Training and Technical Assistance Center. And we are on a current staff on-site planning visit. So my laptop is my work laptop. And so some of my slides may or may have not made it over, being that I have strict security on my laptop and I'm working from a hotel. So please bear with me, but I have a lot of this information on my cards here in front of me. And so I just look forward for you all to take part in here and listen to what information I'm able to share with you all today. Like I said, I am a federal contractor. I'm what they call a grantee technical assistant. That basically means I go in and I assist grantees that have been recipients of their Native Connections, SAMHSA grants for prevention efforts. And I assist grantees in making sure that their grant requirements are met. That's basically the gist of what we do here. I support and provide resources to communities in the efforts of their healing, and whatever in which way that looks. And so I'm going to share a little bit today on what Shelene and Will shared with us this afternoon in regards to just being able to share this information. So today, what we're going to be discussing is what is Indigenous prevention ethics. Indigenous prevention ethics, when we look at the ethical standards, the code of ethics that come about with the ICRC, which is our governing body that allows us to be labeled a certified prevention specialist. They have 6 principles that they view as code of ethics for us as prevention specialists to follow. And the first one is non-discrimination. And so when we look at that, we as an Indigenous people really know what that is. We live that every day of making sure that we're advocating for ourselves to not be discriminated. So I think this first principle, we really already kind of have that under our belts, if you will. The non-discrimination is not something that we take lightly, and it is in some communities a rather difficult triumph to come over, only because today we have a lot of our LGBTQ communities, and some are very embraced in their communities. However, there are communities that we need to be aware of that it is still a stigma to them. It is still a taboo to be labeled as such, and so it is difficult. But this is where we need to put our prevention professionalism hats on and say this effort needs to be non-discrimination. And what does that look like in tribal communities? And so what I ask you here to view is what I've shared is first, when we're looking at Indigenous prevention and we're going into a community, we have been invited. That's the question. Have we been invited into the community? Once this is established, then we ask those individuals or the individual who invited us their protocols for their community. Protocols look very different across Indian country. And what is normal, say in my home communities, I'm Oneida and I'm Odawa, may not be the same if I was in, say, the plains, the Pacific Northwest, up in Alaska, in the Southwest region. So it could be very, very different. And even though I am Indigenous and I say I am going into a community, it is important, even for myself, to check and make sure that we're adhering to those protocols for their community. That also looks at competency as one of the principles for the Code of Ethics. Competency meaning, are we handling our professionalism proficiency? And that's just it. Putting our ego at the door, putting what we have at home, what's normal for us, leaving that at home. When we step foot into a community, they've welcomed us in to assist them. And it's all for one and one for all, is what a lot of us have heard before. And all of this work that we do is for all of us. And so we need to make sure that when we are invited into communities that we are reaching out and asking for those protocols. What is do you open every day with a smudge? Is smudge allowed? Is that normal? Is it a prayer? What type of prayer? Is it a song? Those type of things that are something that we really need to be cognizant of when we're working within tribal community. Next, we also understand and recognize that not all Indigenous communities, as I said, handle those same situations similarly. And we recognize and respect that. A lot of times we also have our traditional knowledge and protocols. And so that's another invite that we must make sure that that's been met by who's ever invited us in to the community, is making sure did they reach out to their traditional elders, their traditional knowledge keepers, to have that as part of our integrity, our natures of services. That's another principle. Integrity is number 3. Nature of services is number 4. And integrity is, not engaging in questionable activities. The nature of services, what we're there to do. We don't have our own agendas when we're coming into community. Next is the values and protocols are very important and aspects that must be understood and as a part of the process. And really what I mean by that is our confidentiality. What's shared in this community won't be, broadcast across Facebook. It's not our thing that we're going to do, or social media, or, sharing our Instagram photos of questionable ceremonies. That's something that we must really be cognizant of. And then when we look at principle number 6, which is ethical obligations for community and society, that's where we really look at the obligations that we have, like I say, you know, really making sure that the community and that particular society within our visiting community, that we always make sure that those ethics are standing. And so when we look at that, we look at ethical decision making. May you please advance the slide? So when we're in community and we're looking at our prevention efforts, and a lot of times in the work that I do, we're looking at what the issue may be. Is it alcohol? Is it suicide? Is it opioids? And so we assess the situation and we ask that the community, you know, identify the issue for us so that we can better assist you, so that we come with the resources. We're able to bring those resources to the community and share what those look like. We have a lot of our resources that we have here at the SAMHSA Tribal Training and Technical Assistance Center that have already been under a microscope, if you will, through SAMHSA, making sure that they are meeting a lot of these ethical standards. Next slide, please. And so the photos I decided to share with you all today are photos about, and these are my photos. It's funny because, you know, where I work, I have access to a lot of things. But again, as I just said in the previous slide, we don't want to share items or things from other communities. Even though we do a lot of times when we do take pictures, we ask for media release forms. And this presentation is supposed to be on my fellowship and not so much my work. But as you know, Dr. Bezich shared that it's interconnected for me. And so these are personal photos of mine. And when we start to look at planning, we brainstorm those possible options. So to achieve the plan and the processes that we need to do in a community, we have to we're looking at what is our goal, but how do we get there? And so these photos to me depict that. The first photo showing my full growth with tassels of corn, my traditional white corn that I was successful at growing in my backyard in large pots, came because what did I do? I had to start with my seeds. And it really came back to, and I'm going to share more about the culture here, but with my culture, we don't just plant seeds in the dirt and hope and wish that something comes to fruition, but we actually, you know, we have songs for our seeds. There's a specific time when we plant our seeds. And so when we really think about my goal of producing corn, I wanted to have ears of corn. I had to make sure that I had everything else aligned prior to. So even though this first photo on the left is actually a picture of, say, August, it took this first picture here on the right, that took place in, you know, February, March, where I was, you know, actually starting my seeds inside the house and, you know, just really making that a part of our family. And I think this is where I would like to culminate the other two presenters, my colleagues, where culture is really prevention. Our traditional foods, that is prevention. And so although I'm here today to talk about ethics, I also want to incorporate, when we see those questions that come up in the chat earlier, what is it that we want to produce? And that is individuals that are healthy and healing. And what does that look like in our tribal communities? And how do we achieve that? Where do we get there? And so a lot of time it is our language, our foods, and our culture. And so next slide, please. Implement. Carry out the decision. So here is a photo that I took from it's actually my home community. So I know I did my introduction in my language, and I am raised more Oneida than I have been Anishinaabe. And I only say that because my grandparents were removed from residential school, boarding school. And so my grandparents were not raised with the culture. So I identify more to my Haudenosaunee side, my Oneida side. But I am also Little Traverse Bay Band Odawa on my mother's side. And we have a very strong cultural community as well. that are being revitalized. And one of them is our Ziba-Midjuwang is a farm. I actually sit on the farm board, and we were doing some strategic action planning with the board. And so this is what this picture depicts. We were looking at, if our community was successful, what does that look like? And so all of those sticky notes give us examples underneath each of those 4 headings: family, individual, nation, and clan, as we follow a clan system as well in our Haudenosaunee and both our Anishinaabe communities. So this picture here, really, to me, it depicts what implement means. Like, so when we were working on this particular piece, we were looking at all of the positives, all of the strengths, all of the gifts that our community had, and we put that out there. That helps build how we implement. This is like the culmination of what brainstorming looks like. Next slide, please. So then we look at evaluation, and we start to reflect on that decision. Which one of those 4 sections, and how do we implement all of those 4 to get to the goal of planting and or being successful with production of a harvest? How do we have a successful harvest? And when we start to do that, we look at the observation. We start to, perhaps if we're going back and reflecting on a community, we're looking at surveying, questionnaire, feedback. There's a community known in the Pacific Northwest that uses GoPros, and they take those GoPro recordings and they review them, to get the feedback from the kids. Because, youth today, a lot of them are very anxious with the pandemic, making us very secluded, that they're not very forthcoming with sharing. And so we have to find alternative ways and creative ways of getting that data. So that's really what we're doing here, is we evaluate, we reflect on the decision. What decision? How do we achieve that decision? And which resource and which method do we use? Next slide, please. So why is this important in our prevention efforts? Our prevention efforts go back to, this is on the left, all of the produce that we had done as a family in our backyard. And as you can see, we grew on a fence post, we grew in pots, we grew in a raised bed. We were living in a townhouse at the time, and so we weren't really able to grow in the ground per se, unless we were guaranteed that we could return the land to the way it was when we found it. And so I didn't want to dabble in that and not be able to receive my security deposit back. So we definitely went with pots and raised beds and, fence posts planting. So, but this is some of our production of what we actually we harvested. This is some of the harvest that we have in that middle picture. And what does all that mean? If we're working together as a family, if we're taking the time to sing those songs, sharing them with our children, our youth, observing and making sure that our plants are actually successful at growing by watering them, turning them, helping them get the sunlight as best they can by going out and tending to our garden. And however that garden may look, this is just obviously an example. There's many ways that we can grow. There's, I've seen people put raised beds in their front yards because that perhaps the front yard is the best sunlight. But it also allowed us to also share song and language. So this here is really the culmination of our collectiveness in our culture as prevention. Really utilizing and thinking about what that means and how does that look. And the last picture I had to share, a healthy family, a healthy, sober family out enjoying nature. And this family is my family. This was taken at Tingle Falls. It's a falls up in the Canadian Rockies, and one of my favorite places to go. It's where I always say I need to retreat back to every year to ground myself. I always call it my grounding time. My husband knows, and the kids, we always look forward to it. So you really can't see my youngest one, but she's there in front of dad. So this is what a healthy family looks like if we really take a look and make culture as part of our prevention efforts. Next slide, please. So how do we maintain ethical standards in Indigenous prevention? We continue to listen to our youth. They're our future leaders. We listen to our communities and their needs. We continue to advocate and provide the support they need. We continue to engage in conversations that are necessary and important to moving our work and efforts in prevention. That's on my part, that's me conversing with our GPOs, our government project officers. The strengths and gifts lie within the community. We must always remember that and recall that and help our communities when they're in struggle and crisis and in trauma. Remember that all tribal and native communities, whether you're urban or rural, that we always have strength and we always have gifts within our own communities. Next slide, please. So at this time, I just want to say Yawanko, Miigwech. Thank you to everyone for participating today and listening and giving me your time, and I appreciate it. I want to also give thanks to Dr. Bays for her extensive just mentorship and friendship, and I'm grateful that she is a colleague of mine. And I also want to give thanks to a former colleague, Connie O'Mara, who actually spoke this to me and put this in my ear to become a fellow in this effort. So I just want to say thank you to everyone here today. Yawanko. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. I'm hopeful that everybody can hear me. As Marie mentioned, we are in the same room together on this call. So thank you, Marie, for your concerted efforts in researching this and looking at this, not just as a fellow, but as a person who serves in this field for behavioral health, putting different hats on at different times to understand the material and be able to move forward with it. We have a few comments in the chat, as well as a question or two. And as you go through the chat box, everybody, it's really great to see where you're coming in from, who you serve, what tribal community you belong to. If you want to put that in there, that'd be very helpful. The comments mostly are about your analogies, your visual imagery is just very powerful, and the use of the corn seed concept. People are really appreciating that. But Peyton also asks a question about the engagement process, and she is asking, who is engaging in the implementation portion? It's like, how do we get community buy-in?
Yeah.
Do you want to share something about that?
Sure. Would you like me to share it with you or online?
Thank you, Dr. Bays. Yes, I can share. In the efforts that we work here, we usually work within the departments that house their Native Connections grant or their SAMHSA grant. However, that doesn't necessarily need to be in every community. Maybe a community doesn't have a Native Connections grant. Maybe they don't have a SAMHSA grant. Maybe they don't have an IHS grant. It's just like a grassroots effort. Recently I was in a community where we did a GONA. And if you're not familiar with a GONA, it's a gathering of Native Americans. And it was a very diverse group within that community. And by what I mean by that is individuals in recovery, elders, community members, professionals that are working right hand in hand within the behavioral health profession. And then we also had individuals that were grandparents or young adult that wanted to make a difference in their community. And they took it upon themselves on our last day of the GONA, we asked, what is it that you can provide to your community? Because that's the efforts of a GONA, is really seeing the gifts, helping our community see the gifts within. And so we asked that question, what is it that you can contribute to the community? What is it that you want to see? Is there a goal? And, this particular group, and I think that group we had 5 groups of 6, they actually produced amongst themselves, community members just went right out and started this effort that they had, it was a fictitious goal at the time, but it actually came to fruition. And I was only out there in October, at the beginning of October, and this event already took place. And, we had about 30 participants in that GONA. And you know how many participants that actually went to their event? 65 members during one of their football tournaments that was taking place. I'm sorry, I'm not a football person, but maybe it's not called a tournament. I'm soccer, so sorry. But it was during a very busy football weekend for them, and they still had 65 participants come in and participate. So it doesn't necessarily have, and it wasn't funded by, you know, the behavioral health department that we were working with. This was grassroots. Now, the behavioral health team did provide resources because they had it and they wanted to support. And usually if you're starting out as a grassroots individual trying to make that happen and you're making all of that social marketing efforts, someone is going to hear you and they will help in whatever way it is. So that's exactly what they did. They did get some help. It was the help of printing the flyers. But the grassroots group, they are the ones that distributed it. So definitely, you know, like I say, listening to the voice of our youth, what is it that they want, and just helping them make that come together.
Thank you, Marie. I know we could probably sit here and talk for at least another hour, if not more, with questions and comments, and the support that you've decided to provide for our fellows today is very much appreciated. You taking the time to be here on the line with us. For our three fellows, taking time from their busy schedules, raising small children, to dividing their work time, and just carving out the time to share your experience with us as the National American Indian Alaska Native Fellows for our Prevention Center that we had under SAMHSA with the Native Center for Behavioral Health at the University of Iowa. I want to thank our mentors, both Dr. Mark Standing Eagle Bays, who worked closely with Shelene, and Dr. Jackie Gray, who worked closely with Willie-Ed Tapedo. Without you all, we couldn't have done this. And I do want to turn the last few words over to our director, Dr. Anna-Helena Skinstad, who led us through this project for the last several years, planning it, preparing it, planting those seeds, and supporting us all. Dr. Skinstad?
Thank you very much, Dr. Bays, and thank you all so much for joining us. And I am so inspired by listening to our three fellows that I just want to say that our center has had a very rough spot here for 2-3 months. However, you have inspired me to come up with new ideas for how can we inspire you and offer you opportunities to share like this again, because prevention often gets a little bit pushed in the background, but we all know that prevention is really where we can avoid getting to serious problems in a community. And what has been mentioned many times today is culture is prevention. But these three presentations have really reminded me about, yes, we need to focus on the cultural strength, but that doesn't mean we should not know what was going on in the communities. And these three presentations all show us that they had taken it seriously, that they need to understand the deficits, but the implementation needs to be on the strength and the cultural approach to understanding what can we do to make Native communities healthier. And community-based participatory programming, which is something that our center has done for very long, is the name of the game here, because we need to go in and listen and not tell them what to do. So with that, I don't know if anybody has anything to add, but I have to tell you, you all have inspired me so much today. Thank you so much for what you have given and also for sharing your breadth of knowledge.
Thank you, Dr. Skinstad. Dr. Gray has posted the survey link a few times in the chat box. So please make sure you take the time to hop on that link and provide us your feedback. It is anonymous, cannot be traced back to you, but it does help the Native Center for Behavioral Health learn more about what we offer and how it makes meaning for you in your communities and how you serve, as well as what we can do for future presentations and future research projects that we serve on. Thank you all very much. Have a great afternoon. Now, some.
Thank you.